So we are getting started with our monthly membership meeting for November. And first off, we had a question about having a fall and that there kind of are better and not so good of ways to have a fall. And pretty much, of course, our number one goal is to not have falls, but we may not be able to prevent 100% of falls. So if someone is going to have a fall, then we want them to be able to fall as athletically as possible and reduce risk of injury, because injury is what really matters when it comes to falls. And Linda was mentioning that a friend of hers had fallen with outstretched arms and broke both wrists. And that is one of the worst case scenarios. Having any injury is a big deal. Having both arms injured at the same time makes it really hard to live life. So we have a section in the video library, which I'm going to share. And if we go to browse, I'm going to sign in so I'll be able to see them. If I'm logged in, we can either scroll down in the video library to show more. And it's under the functional activities / exercises, athletic falls training. You also could search that in the search bar. So if we click on that, we have a lecture that I did last year. Like, what year is it now? Last year on athletic falls training. So kind of what the research is, some of the main things to think about, an intro into this training, and then some opportunity for practice here, either just watching Alex or actually doing some practice on your own if that feels safe to do. And then I don't know, Fathom, this is one thing I want you to make note of. I would like to have a handout on just some of the things to know that can already be helpful. One, Linda, is basically that you want to think about like landing on the meat. So if you're having a fall, landing on a body part that has a bit more padding, you want to think about letting momentum continue to move. So we're not trying to stop momentum with a fall. That's just not how physics works. It is much better if we can kind of tuck and roll, or even if you're landing on your arms, you want your arms to absorb the force and you keep coming down and you basically protect the face, but you absorb force. So it's not stopping movement from happening, because that movement is happening. It is absorbing the force as you move. So yeah, that's something I would have to look to see kind of. I remember that there was sort of a list of things to kind of think or know, like be a rag doll, um, you know, go with the momentum, try to land on the meat, land on, body parts that have more padding on them. So there were some things like that that just can be helpful, even without actually doing specific training. Just knowing those things could be helpful. That if you feel like, oh, I'm going down, then you can, you know, try to fall like a rag doll instead of falling like a tin man or something. I've had a couple of people tell me that just that rag doll of like, okay, if you're going, like, kind of let it happen and move with the momentum, with doing things like kind of tucking your head and trying to roll. So there are some specific things, and that's where the practice can be really helpful, because it's one thing to know that you're supposed to do something, but you may not be able in the split second to, you don't have time to like make a decision about it. At all. Maybe you do have the time to say, okay, I'm going to tuck my head in and kind of be like a turtle or something. But otherwise, if you actually practice this, if you have a mat and you practice going forward and to the side and even back and doing some tumbling and moving around, the practice is what makes it more automatic. So if a fall happens, you're a little more prepared for that to happen automatically, instead of having to decide, oh, this is the way that I'm supposed to fall. There's not enough time for that. And Sarah said parkour. Yeah, totally. Like doing parkour in your house, like climbing around, getting down, getting up, kind of climbing over furniture, thinking like being down on the ground. How can you roll and get into different positions? All of that, like all the floor power moves that we do, really can prepare us for this as well. That's kind of like the first step, is just getting on the floor and being comfortable, and then working your way up from the floor, actually. You never necessarily have to do a full fall from standing for practice. I think just this work on the ground can be super helpful and pretty safe. But in some cases, you may want to even go up from there. So yeah, this section, the video library, would be a good section to check out, this lecture. And then we've got those videos to watch, which these ones are all shorter, 7 minutes, 9, 4.5 minutes. So those would be good to kind of see. And there is research that shows that when you watch someone doing the thing that you want to be able to do, it can help you do it. It kind of can activate some of the same parts of the brain. So training certainly is good, but watching someone doing the training, I definitely think is the first step to kind of see what that looks like, and then think about incorporating some of those things into your practice as well. Any follow-up questions on that?
Thanks.
You're welcome.
It was tripping over a dog, so it was coming from high up, and I thought, what will I do if that happens to me? How should I fall? But
yeah, I think the biggest thing is thinking about ragdoll and like go with the momentum. Don't try to stop momentum. That stopping momentum gets us into trouble. We want to just go with it. But yeah, I mean, there are certain situations and surfaces that, there's only so much that can be done. But yeah, we had one member who was exercising on her deck with TheraBands, and the TheraBands broke. And so she was falling backwards because she'd been pulling into the resistance, and she just ragdolled down and did not injure herself. Whereas a lot of people's instinct when going backwards is to almost arch back, and that's when you could hit your head. So we really want to try to tuck the head and turtle up. So that's something you could call out like turtle as if that fall's happening, and try to kind of like a tuck and roll. So practicing a tuck and roll, because that is a way that you can have a fall be safer in many cases, is that you tuck and roll. All right. Any other questions or thoughts that people want to share before I pull up some slides and go through some things for November? All right. Well, there'll be time afterwards as well. I will share this PowerPoint. Get full screen. Continue to share. Okay, you are sharing. Good. That's what I'm intending to do. Oops. All right. So our next meeting is going to be the last one of the year. I cannot believe it. It will be on Tuesday, December 4th at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Save the date down if you want to. Our exercise of the month for November is turkey trot. So basically we're going to be walking or jogging in place. We'll add in some footwork, might add in some other fun things while we're trotting along. And that is something you could think about for this month.
Hello, everyone. Happy
family ever done a 5K or gone for a walk on Thanksgiving? There are lots of organized events which you could go to, but I think it's just a great reminder that going for a walk on Thanksgiving or the days around it that you celebrate is a really good idea. You want to keep our bodies moving. And that's something that we can do with family or friends or anyone that we're getting together with. So yeah, just walking it out or jogging in place. And we'll come up with some fun, different things to incorporate throughout the month. But it's also great, even in like a power moves class, to just get a little more cardio going, get the heart rate up a bit more in class. So that is our exercise of the month for November. We'll do all month. We'll have one more for December. Our member highlight is Sarah, who's on the call today. So I sent out the links for all these videos in the email yesterday, and I might share them again. But that way you can watch. And turkey trot, it's not a very complex exercise, so it's not necessarily a video that needs to be watched for you to be able to do the exercise with us in class. We'll explain it in classes as we go along. This video with Sarah, I would highly recommend watching. Great story of challenges in the healthcare system and being able to overcome those challenges with getting educated, getting the right resources, reading, medication optimization. We were just talking about this yesterday in our exercise coaching call, is so critical when it comes to being able to exercise well and being on the right amount of medication, on the right schedule. All of that is super important. So Sarah was able to advocate for herself and is noticing improvement. and has been able to jog for the first time in a long time. So really cool. Thank you to Sarah for sharing your story. Highly recommend watching that. Then our equipment highlight for this month is a strap. So basically you can get a yoga strap, or you also can use a belt or a rope or something else that you have at home. We show some examples in this video. Here, Alex is using this strap to increase kind of the stretch and mobility work in class. So you can use it for stretching, for strengthening. That's quite a stretch. A lot of us cannot necessarily reach our feet and get our knees straight. So using a strap allows you to get into a good stretch and progress from there. Stretch your hips and legs in all different ways. Some good hamstring stretches. Stretching the outside of the hip, the inside of the hip. Some great shoulder stretches. We sometimes use towels for this as well. So there's a lot of different options, but it's just a great thing to do and very functionally relevant. You know, when we take a shower and then we are toweling off afterwards, we want to have good flexibility and mobility in our shoulders that allows us to dry off and reach all the body parts so that we can get dressed and be dry when we are doing that. So that's one of the, and then, you know, putting on enough jackets. We're coming into the season where that is something that we're doing. And these are really great stretches to help us be able to get those arms into jackets easier. And a lot of our life things are in front of us, and that's where we're reaching and moving our arms. And we have to reach behind, you know, the first side of the jacket's not too hard, but that second side to coordinate, that can be challenging. So these stretches with the straps are really good ones. What I tend to do in the video library when someone uses the straps in class, I try to make a note of it so that if you don't have straps or don't want a class like that, and you see, okay, this one uses straps, you don't use that for a recording, or if you do want to do a class where it's straps and get that extra stretch using them, you can select that class. Research highlight. So this is a recent publication. Daniel Korkos is a researcher in Chicago area doing great work. He is the lead researcher on the SPARKS-3 study, which is a big exercise study happening right now that is organized in a way where if they can prove the hypothesis, there will be an individual study that was powered in a way where we can say that exercise affects Parkinson's disease progression over time and slows progression. So that study is happening right now. It is for people in the first 3 years after being diagnosed. If that is you and you're interested in participating in research, you could contact them. Or if you know anyone who's recently diagnosed, I know they are still recruiting. And that's one of the hardest things with research is recruiting enough people so you can, you know, recruit everyone you need. They have a target number that they need to recruit. Because that number is important for the statistics of saying if people experienced this much change or didn't. We do see a change that is statistically significant to warrant, you know, being able to say that exercise slows Parkinson's progression. So participants are super important. So they're still recruiting, let anyone know. He's written a couple articles, and these are kind of just review discussion articles talking about the research. And so advice to people with Parkinson's in their clinic is get a cardiopulmonary exercise test. So I've heard about this before, but I had not read this full article yet. And so I read it for this month and I was like, okay, we definitely want to share this. This is something that comes up a lot. So one, aerobic exercise is the type of exercise that is shown to have the best potential for actually impacting disease progression over time. Lots of different forms of exercise are beneficial and helpful in different ways, but aerobic exercise is the one that looks to be able to really change progression. That can be done in different ways, using treadmills, bikes, potentially boxing. But what is important for each person is that you are actually measuring your heart rate when you are doing those forms of exercise and seeing what range you are getting into. When most of the time when you are being told what range you're in, that number of what your max heart rate is and what percent of max heart rate you are at is based on an estimate. So what the research shows is that, being between 60 and 80% is beneficial. And it might be that we need to get into those higher percent ranges to get the most benefit. This is the research happening, and that is with people more newly diagnosed. It could be that that's a bit different depending on how long you've had Parkinson's, but the intensity level seems to be a factor that is important. Most of the time when we're using an app and a heart rate monitor, it's an estimate. There's a formula, and it takes into account your age, and sometimes it's just your age, sometimes it's your age and your resting heart rate to calculate what your estimated max heart rate is, and therefore what 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, etc. percent of your estimated heart rate is. What they talk about in this article, though, is that there are quite a few people with Parkinson's who do not have a normal physiologic response to exercise. There are some people who have a blunted response and their heart rate does not elevate as much as expected during exercise. And also the max heart rate that they are able to achieve is different physiologically than what the estimate is. And so basically, this is a problem. If you are someone who's really trying to follow the research and you're using a heart rate monitor, you may not be using the right number to do your calculations, and therefore you could be underdosed or overdosed with exercise. It could go either way. So some people, their estimated max heart rate is 160, but then when they do a test, it's actually 140. So now we need to compare to 140. They also showed an example in this article of someone whose max heart rate was actually higher than what was estimated. And so they're the ones who could actually be exercising at a lower intensity than what they need to achieve full benefits. For the people who have a blunted heart rate response or lower, and they may not be able to achieve that higher number, what most people are probably experiencing is frustration. So they're told, you need to get to a heart rate of 135 and that's maybe 80% to really benefit. And they're, getting to 110 or 115, and they're really frustrated and, struggling and trying to do something that physiologically is not possible. And so that could be disheartening, frustrating. So if you have accurate information about what your max heart rate is, then you have accurate information about what these target numbers are, which you maybe are already achieving or not. So basically what they're saying is get a cardiopulmonary exercise test. This is similar to a cardiovascular stress test that you might do with a cardiologist, in that you're on a piece of equipment like a treadmill or a bike, and you are progressively being challenged, usually in terms of speed and elevation or resistance. So you're working hard, and you go as hard until you are working the hardest you possibly can. The difference with a cardiopulmonary exercise test compared to a regular stress test is that with a cardiopulmonary exercise test, you're wearing a mask, and it is measuring both the oxygen that you take in and the for some reason
carbon dioxide.
For some reason I cannot remember carbon dioxide. Thank you, Gail. So you're exhaling carbon dioxide, and so the cardiopulmonary exercise test is measuring the ratio of that gas exchange, and this is something it's important in establishing, is someone actually working as hard as they physiologically can. Because if you're working and you just feel like this is the most I can do, that might be physiologically the most you can do, or it may be based on effort, or like for example, with Parkinson's, if you're under medicated, you're going to have a lot harder time pushing and generating those higher speeds, higher effort levels. So in a normal stress test, someone says, this is the end for me. That's the hardest I can possibly work. There is no way to verify if that's actually physiologically the hardest that person can work. And therefore, this is an accurate max heart rate. So I don't think this is something that every single person has to do, but if you are someone who is really interested in your health, this is another measurement, and it is different than a stress test, gives you some additional information. If you are someone who's really trying to work at a certain level and you're not sure if you're really working at that level, maybe you're someone who gets into the 70 or 80s and you're like, this actually isn't that hard. I would question whether your estimated max heart rate is accurate, because getting to 80% is quite challenging. So if you feel like it's not, then you may actually have the heart rate that is elevated. Or if you are someone who's, aiming for something and you just can never get there, and you are working so hard and you're out of breath and sweaty, and, your perceived exertion is really high, as high as it can possibly go, then I think that you would really benefit from having an accurate physiologic max heart rate to do the calculations from. So this is something, it's one of our projects here that is on my to-do list that I haven't really gotten a chance to yet, is find where can people go get this. So it's a matter first, if you see a cardiologist, asking your cardiologist if they do this test in the office. Hopefully it can be covered by insurance. You would indicate, I'm really following the research for my diagnosis of Parkinson's, and per the research, I need to be working at this high level. You could take in this article and say, so I really need to know what my physiologic max heart rate is. Ideally, it could be billed through insurance. If not, then we're trying to find out how much this test would actually cost. And basically, we're asking kind of people's cardiologists. And then, like, I've done a Google search in our area. There are some specialty cardiologist practices that may be a little bit more based on performance and some other things. So that might be a place that you're able to access this test. Universities doing research is a place where you potentially could access this test. So for anyone who's interested, you're going to check with your cardiologist if you have one. Otherwise, you're going to search cardiologists in your area, specialty practices, reach out, see if any of them do them, if this could be billed through insurance or not, if not, what the cost is. If anyone gets this test done or gathers any other information, please let me know what you find out. Something that hopefully we are going to have more information about what our resources are locally and what kind of the cost of this test is sooner than later. But I think it's something that I highly recommend all of you consider it. And I'm hoping that something like this could, cost a few $100s at most, and not the thousands of dollars that ChatGPT told us that it might cost. So working on that. So great research study. I will share the full text link. I think I shared the video, which the video in YouTube had the full text link, but I'll share the full text link because I think it's a good read and a really good one to share with your neurologist, cardiologist, primary care. If you join support groups or anything, share it. And let's get more people having accurate information so they can really benefit the most from the exercise they're doing. Any questions about that? All right. Then important dates for November. So we are open on Veterans Day. We usually get that question. I'm not sure if it is a bank holiday. I think some businesses are closed, but we will be open on Veterans Day. It's Tuesday, November 11th. We will be closed, though, on Thursday, November 27th and Friday, November 28th for Thanksgiving. So we will be closed Thursday and Friday, no in-person or online classes. We hope you all enjoy the long weekend. Get to spend some time with friends and family, and our team gets the opportunity to decompress, take a break, have a long weekend, do some traveling, see their friends and family. It's nice to be able to do that. Our online educational meeting for this month will be on Tuesday, November 18th at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We are going to do kind of an annual review, like how did things go this past year with regards to my Parkinson's and exercise and, what do I want for my life? And we just really want to live intentionally. And so it helps to, we'll basically have a couple review questions. I'll try to have this organized and even send it out ahead of time, but kind of some review questions for the year. And then thinking about what are my goals and things that I want to accomplish in 2026, so that we can really live our lives intentionally and think about what's important to us and how we want to spend our time and set goals. Exercise is not just exercise. I mean, it is, but it's exercise so that you can do the things you want, have the energy to do the things that you want, spend time with friends and family, volunteer, travel, be healthy, minimize doctor's visits, maximize your health, reduce risk of other comorbidities. So for each person, kind of our motivation to exercise is a little bit different. And it's important to think about what those things are. Sometimes it's helpful to print it out on a piece of paper or write it out and post it in the space where you exercise. Like, remind yourself why you are prioritizing the time that you spend exercising, or if that is your goal for next year and this year was maybe a little bumpier of a road, or you didn't get to exercise quite as much as you intended to, that might be the goal for next year, and thinking about what can help support you in doing that. So we'll have that educational meeting. I think we will basically take off December unless something comes up, an opportunity comes up, but we'll probably be taking December off. Gets kind of busy for the holidays and the end of the year. And then that gives me a little bit of time to get organized for next year. And I'm going to try to get some great speakers. I feel like this year I didn't bring in a lot of outside speakers on topics, but we already have a talk scheduled for January with a neuro GI doctor. So I'm very excited for that. Book club will be in January 2026. The exact date and book is TBD. I'm sending out the link to vote this week every day. So please do vote if you're interested, and then we'll be able to make the announcement. I'll make it early next week, so people can vote through Friday. I'll let you know on Monday what date we're going to do and what book we're going to read. And then we just thought we'd give ourselves a little bit more time, again, since the holidays are busy. So we will meet in January, and it seems like that's really going well. I am still finishing The Nightingale, but it is a really good book. I'm glad it's the book that everybody chose. Because yeah, it's a really good book. It's important history and really good stories about the characters that are in the stories. So yeah, really enjoying it. We will meet again. For our online class schedule, no changes. We've added our additional 7 a.m. Pacific time classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Feels like we have a good schedule for now. So that is going to continue as is for the moment, and there might be a point where we make some adjustments. But let me know if there's anything that you're interested in, questions, thoughts, suggestions, let us know. Our in-person meeting support groups, we have a meeting today. It's for our members who have Parkinson's. Next Tuesday is for spouses of people with Parkinson's. And then the third week of the month is for everyone, people with Parkinson's and their spouses. We have a social worker leading it. And today, I did actually make a mistake. I send out 2 emails each day, one to our in-person members and one to online members. And I'm usually careful about if things are relevant for one group versus the other, making sure that there's slight tweaks to the 2 emails. They're not exactly the same. But today's email to our online members included mentioning that we have a support group, and a couple people have asked about that. So I am sorry that I put that in there, because that is an in-person meeting that we have. But also it's something that, do we want to have a group like that? We did it way back when we first got started with Rogue in Motion Online during COVID. And that was a time where there was a lot going on and a lot to talk about. But that group kind of at a certain point, got petered out a little bit. And so we stopped doing it. But that is certainly something that we could do again if we wanted to. Otherwise, if you are interested in online support groups, there's an organization called PMD Alliance, Parkinson's and Movement Disorders Alliance, that does really great work. They're a nonprofit. They do some in-person meetings, somewhat, occasionally, but they have a lot of consistent online programming happening. They do educational meetings with, world experts. They do different support groups. They have, as far as I know, ones that are for partners and spouses, one for adult children of people living with Parkinson's. And then for people with Parkinson's, there are different groups. There are ones, I think, for people newly diagnosed. I'm not sure if they have different groups for men and women, but they definitely have different types of support groups. So that is an organization that I would definitely check out, because I think kind of those specific groups can be really helpful in having these conversations, and they happen on a regular basis. But if our members are interested in us hosting something, definitely open to that for next year. So let me know if that's something that you would be interested in. Future educational meetings. So this is what, in December, if I have a bit of time, I'll be working on. I am very excited. We have Dr. Wael El-Nashef is his name. He is a gastrointestinal physician who specializes in working with people who have neurologic diagnoses. So he understands the brain-gut connection in a very different way than a traditional GI doctor does, and understands, the interplay with Parkinson's. He's up in Pasadena, so that's in LA area, and it's not close to us. It's about an hour away, depending on traffic. So it is he's accessible to our members, and we've had a few of our members have gone up and seen him in person, and I've heard really good things. They said that it was completely different than seeing a traditional GI doctor in the understanding with Parkinson's and the things to look at, and some of the testing that happened, and just the conversations that happened. So just to know that that kind of doctor exists is pretty exciting. And so our in-person members, I recommend seeing someone like that. If you're in another area, you could do a search and see if there's anyone like that, if that would be a beneficial team member for you to have. And he will come in January to basically talk about, what he does, how it's different, answer questions, what's important to know about Parkinson's in the gut. So I'm very excited for him to join us. That'll be on a Friday at 1 p.m. because that was the best day of the week for him. So I really try to not have meetings be too late and not conflict with any other meetings that we have, and then work for the speaker. So you can save the date for that, January 23rd. That is a Friday. It will be at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We will record that meeting so that if you're not able to attend live, you can watch it. I have a neurourologist, so I'm going to get in touch with her to see if she's available to do a meeting. And then I'll look at all these other topics as well and reach out and try to have good speakers for all of these topics. So that will be exciting for next year. So yeah, that's all I've got in terms of notes, our updates for this month, our, days that were closed and everything. So I am going to stop the share. And now we can open it up. If anyone has any questions or thoughts or suggestions, I am open to all of those.
Could you repeat the date for December's meeting?
December, the monthly membership meeting?
Yeah.
December 4th. It's the first Tuesday. That is oh no, it's the second, isn't it? That's
yeah.
So yep. That once I started talking about it, I realized that when I looked at the calendar, I remember seeing December 2nd. And then I think while I was editing the PowerPoint, I got distracted and only changed January and didn't change the 4th to the 2nd. So yes, our next monthly membership meeting will be Tuesday, December 2nd.
Okay.
Thank you for noticing that. All right. Any other typos or mistakes that anyone noticed? Any other thoughts or questions at all?
It's good to see Chuck back.
Yeah, good to see you, Chuck.
You were missed, Chuck.
It's been a long road, I'll tell you what.
Oh.
Long road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is a very common experience. Did you had an elective surgery, Chuck? Is that correct?
Yeah, I had spinal fusion on 6th level,
Yep.
and then
Oh,
SI
yeah.
joint fusion.
Yep, that's a big deal.
It was a 10-hour surgery.
Ooh, that is a really big deal. Yeah. Being
Yeah, so-
under for 10 hours, a surgery for 10 hours, spine surgery is always a really big deal. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
then it kind
It
of
is
whacked
a-
out my meds too. So it was an
Mhm.
experience. We're starting to get back on track here now.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations. But yeah, it's pretty common for it to be a big deal and a long road to get back. And it's just a matter of sticking with it. And we've seen people have really good recovery over that period of time. But yeah, you kind of mentally have to stick with it and know that it's okay that there's going to be bumps in the road and just do the best you can to keep everything like meds going as well as possible.
That's it. That was the whole thing.
Mhm.
That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, Chuck, you
And
look good. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was a good weight loss program for 5 weeks. So
Yeah. When you can't move as much, don't
you
get
can't
to
do
eat
much
as
of
much.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing was they were sending physical therapy to the house. So
That's good.
that helped get things moving a lot faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Very important. And then hopefully there's a transition from a therapist coming to your home to then you going to outpatient, being able to kind of take things to the next level in terms of challenge, as well as starting to get back into online classes.
Exactly. So
Yeah. It's a long road though, for sure. Do you
Hopefully-
feel better? Does it feel like kind of
I
whatever
still
that
have
you needed to have the surgery? Does it feel like it worked?
a portion of it feels like it worked already. And then the SI joints, that's the one that's going to be a little bit rough for a while.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting out of chairs and stuff. But we'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there for sure.
Mm-hmm. One sit to stand at a time.
That's it.
Yeah. Go for some elevated surfaces for a bit to make it a little bit easier, and then you can always progress down to the lower surfaces.
Right. That's what we've been trying to do. So we'll see how it goes.
All right, good. All right. Anything else? Otherwise, we can wrap up early and take a little movement break before speech class, maybe.
Okay.
Stephanie's back. I know I think it was Utah that she went to visit her son, right? Last week. Sounds like it was a good trip. So I'm sure she will share all about it in speech class. All right. Well, I'm going to end the call then if there's no other questions. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you all for joining. And yeah, for any other exercise questions, we're meeting every Monday. So if there's something that comes up with regards to exercise or progression or questions, Sarah, I saw your email, and I think that would be, Sarah emailed about trying to kind of track workouts better and in a different way. And Sarah, I think that would be a really good thing for us to talk about in next week's exercise coaching call. So I hope you can make it and we could talk about it. Because yeah, and I don't necessarily have an easy, good answer. I think that's something we're going to be kind of brainstorming together. All right. Well, have a great day, everybody. Have fun in
Thank you,
speech in
Claire.
about 20 minutes. Stephanie will join.
Thank you.
Thanks, Claire.
Yep. You're welcome. Talk to y'all later.